Love every moment. Play for life and death. Ouch. Can we do that again? I'm a biologist who studies and writes about the interrelationships between living beings that weave the web that we call nature. What do I know about love and play and death? A lot, it turns out, after easing my mom through that transition a year ago, February, and then walking with the love of my life, my husband of almost 29 years, through his journey with brain cancer until his death last November. Those terrible and beautiful journeys taught me how to play and how to live. Look at that, it worked. Sorry. Play, it's a verb, and we define that verb as to engage in an activity for enjoyment or recreation. Notice that definition, that the words joy and create are implicit in that definition. Joy comes to us from enjoyment, the act of taking joy from something. Create is at the heart of recreation, which comes from the Latin for create anew. Play, thus, is an active practice of creating or renewing joy. And there's my late husband, economist and sculptor Richard Cabe, at play, working with native rocks, carving these ambassadors of the earth into vessels that reveal their inner beauty for us all to see. That's play from the heart, one part love and one part joy. The joy he took from that creative play carried him through brain cancer with a great deal of grace, playing through the end. We all die. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Our lives are an apprenticeship to the truth that around every circle another can be drawn, that there is no end in nature, every end is a beginning." Play teaches us how to live joyously in the truth of that cycle of life. In each end, some door opens to a beginning we cannot know until we stand on that particular threshold. What better way to meet the inevitable end than through the practice of play, of actively renewing joy? What if we set our sights in life not on fame, fortune, or power, but on living well, with an open heart and playful spirit all the way through? That's the opportunity that brain cancer gave Richard and I. Here's some of what we learned along the way. Awareness. Our first lesson came on a hot morning in southwestern Colorado as we were driving to an artist-writer residency at a remote mountain cabin. Richard looked around the landscape we were passing through and said suddenly, "What's with all the birds?" "What birds?" I asked cautiously. He pointed to birds crowding every fence line and utility wire, birds on the cattails around a nearby pond, tiny birds on each blade of grass, huge birds perched on the rim of distant mesas. I looked around carefully with eyes trained by growing up in a bird-watching family and couldn't see one. The birds existed only in his mind. Those birds sent us home instead of to that remote cabin for a time out to pursue our creativity. Home to find out what was wrong with the man who looked and seemed so healthy, except for those legions of birds. Those avian messengers were our only warning of something seriously amiss in his brain. That something was a glioblastoma, a cancerous brain tumor that eventually colonized his entire right hemisphere and took his life. If we hadn't paid attention, if we hadn't heeded those birds, he would have died within weeks. As it was, we had 2¼ years, and we used every moment. Our next lesson in the practice of life play was to embrace and make use of what came, like it or not. We ended up in Denver, where Richard, still seeming perfectly healthy, was hospitalized with massive brain swelling while a team of experts consulted on his case. We decided to make our residency in the hospital, reading, writing, thinking, recharging our inner lives. If you've ever spent time in a hospital, you know it's not easy to make it retreatful, especially under great stress. But what we found was that by using what came and taking it on our own terms, we could not only survive, but thrive, even when life took us down a path we had never imagined and wouldn't have taken if we could. Then came brain surgery. Richard's neurosurgeons removed a tumor the size of a large purple marble from his right temporal lobe, the locus of visual processing, hence those birds. The pathology results confirmed the worst, brain cancer. After we digested that diagnosis and the prognosis, a year at best, we determined to spend our days helping him live well with brain cancer. We began by shedding our baggage. We simplified our lives, focusing on what really mattered to each of us and getting rid of anything that felt like a weight. We decluttered our days, both literally and metaphorically. We got rid of emotional baggage and physical stuff. And we resolved to have fun. And there's my love, having fun, swimming in the cold, swift waters of the Arkansas River about 2 blocks from our house on his 60th birthday. 10 months after the first brain surgery, 4 weeks before the second. Playing, actively creating joy. As brain cancer treatment took over our daily lives, we began to search for grace notes in each day. No matter how hard the day, we looked for something to make us smile, to inspire us, to simply enjoy. Like Corpus Callosum, one of the outdoor sculptures on the campus of the medical center where we lived during Richard's radiation treatment. Every day, we walked through the campus for his daily date with the dosimeter, the radiation machine. Richard's favorite route took us through this block-long assemblage of granite, steel, and earth, inspired by the channel that carries information from hemisphere to hemisphere in all our brains, a brain structure we would come to know only too well as Richard's tumor grew. The metaphor of Sayre's sculpture, linking disparate worlds, inspired Richard to incorporate what he learned from living with brain cancer into his own sculpture practice. Play isn't practical. It's not an item we can check off on our to-do list. But without it, our capacity for joy and renewal, our ability to live life itself, withers. Every day Richard played, often picking up his juggling balls. Juggling was his own personal brain function self-test. Could he keep 3 balls in the air? Could he do it standing on one leg, on the other? Juggling spread the joy, bringing a smile to his face and to the faces of those around us, including in one very precious moment when he picked up his juggling balls in the oncology clinic and the docs came out of their offices and laughed out loud. When Richard's oncologist told us it was time to arrange for hospice care at home, we asked if we had time to play, to take the honeymoon we had skipped nearly 3 decades before when we married in graduate school. She said, "Go now." So we set off on the big trip, a 4,000-mile drive to the Pacific coast and down it from Puget Sound to Southern California. Every day, even though by then he couldn't juggle and sometimes even walking took concentration, Richard looked around, looked at me and said, "I'm a lucky guy." His every step celebrated simply being. Some years before I had written, "What we do best comes not from our heads but from our hearts, from an ineffable impulse that resists logic and calculation, love. Love is what connects us to the living world, the urging from within that guides our best steps in the dance of life." Back at home, the hospice staff brought us a comfort basket, including dark chocolates in individual foil wrappers that each held a saying. Richard's favorite was "love every moment." That phrase became part of the intentions we said to each other every night before going to sleep, along with resolves to be a source of support and joy, and more prosaic resolves like not snoring. I took the words to mean Richard intended to love every moment, a beautiful intention, whether you are aware your moments are numbered or not. Then I realized he'd added a period after the first word, love, every moment. It was, he said, a reminder that there is love implicit in every moment, and that we can choose to live it or not. He didn't always, nor did I. Dying is not easy, and losing control of his body as his tumor grew was as frustrating and exhausting for him as caregiving sometimes was for me. Still, each day we consciously did our best to love and live every moment, to find something to laugh about, to practice play in the face of the end. Richard's end came on a sun-drenched Sunday morning, 2 months after we got home from the big trip. His last word, love. He hung on until our regular Sunday morning Quaker Buddhist worship group gathered around his bed. Our daughter was there, his hospice nurse too. We're all here, I said. You've come to that end, which is also a beginning. You can let go anytime you're ready. His labored breathing quit, started again, and then stopped for good. He died as he lived, holding a favorite rock. We sat with him in silence, sending his spirit on its way with love. Then we washed his body and consigned it for transport to the medical school where he had been treated, so he could continue teaching as a practice cadaver. And we went out to brunch. We toasted him, we cried, we ate and laughed. We honored his life and the passing of it with playful, loving spirits. So that's my simple, radical idea. Let's love every moment. Let's live with open hearts and playful spirits. And let's honor the end of our lives as we do the beginning. Thank you.